So you might wonder why it is that we're talking so much about the Persians in our chapter that's on Greece, but you will see momentarily that one of the things, the most important thing that they really want you to understand about the Persians is specifically the effect that the Persians had on the Greeks in the Persian War. So you can see one of your objectives there is to be able to explain the causes and the effects of that war between the Greeks and the Persians. But in addition to that, I want you to pay close attention, and of course I'll ask you a couple of questions about it. Pay attention to the difference in governing styles between the Persian Empire and the Greek city-states. So you can see there a map of the Persian Empire. I want you to pay close attention to some of those areas that were actually became part of it, because one of the things you may remember from your reading about the Persian Empire is that it was the largest empire of its time. It starts here in central Persia, which is, modern day Iran. And then the first thing that Cyrus the Great conquered was this region of Media. Then he travels outward. He conquers in Asia Minor, which is what this peninsula there is called. It's called Asia Minor. Nowadays it is Turkey. He conquered Lydia. And then finally he conquers this region, which should look very familiar to you, between the Tigris and okay, I won't, but you knew what was coming. He conquered Babylon as well, and he conquered Mesopotamia. So as you can see, it's a pretty massive feat, the empire that he put together. And like I said, that man's name is Cyrus. Cyrus was the first king. If you're going to remember one Persian king, let it be him. He was the first one to unite all of those individual Persian city-states into one larger empire. And you can see there that it lasted about 29 years. I have strong feelings about Cyrus, so give me a minute. I'm going to go off, because Cyrus is a fairly impressive figure. He was one that, after conquering all that, then even expanded eastward, and you can see all the way to the Indus River. So he conquered parts of western India, and historians writing about him said pretty much that he subjected every nation without exception. So we know that he was remarkably powerful. But one of the reasons that he's so popular and so well known is that he was known for respecting the customs and the religions of the people that he conquered. So unlike the more cutthroat conquerors, he was one who very much believed in tribute, and those regions that he conquered, so long as they were willing to pay tribute, remember, money that you pay to a larger power, he allowed them to generally continue to govern themselves and to continue to behave in the way they always had. He didn't try to impose any Persian beliefs on them. The empire he founded, aside from being called the Persian Empire, you can also known as the Achaemenid Empire. You might hear it called that. He is really impressive because he was known for this creation of this kind of centralized administrative system, especially in the West. He was the first one that really created the centralized government for the benefit of his subjects. You should remember that one of the reasons the Persian Empire fell was because they had a string of bad kings who were really greedy and selfish and only concerned about themselves. Cyrus was not like that. Interestingly, he was the first king in history, or person in history, to have the Great added at the end of his name. You know that Alexander the Great is going to be the one that ultimately conquers the Persian Empire later, and that suffix of the Great is going to be added to a lot of people, but he was one of the first ones. Also, interestingly, he had other nicknames. He was called the Father because he was really seen as this good figure, this figure that really cared about his subjects and had their best interests at heart. He was called the Liberator, because of his role in freeing the Jews. He's, interestingly, the only non-Jewish person mentioned in the Old Testament as being the anointed, or kind of the chosen by God. He was the only one who was not Jewish who was mentioned in that way. So he is a figure that many people respect, and he's still a central figure in Iran today, this early hero. Like I said, he was known for the fact that he ruled mercifully, and take a look at pretty much any place we studied he conquered. He conquered Mesopotamia, he conquered Syria in the area of Lebanon, he conquered Phoenicia. He doesn't conquer Egypt, but his son Cambyses does, so his empire that he founded continues to expand, and then, like I said, into Western India. As far as the Persian government goes, you're going to want to know about Darius. Now, Darius is not the son, I just said the son of Cyrus was Cambyses, but Darius was tangentially related to the family, and in 521 he comes to be king of the Persian Empire, and he's going to do something that's really impressive and revolutionary. He's going to reorganize his government into provinces, and remember, we learned about provinces early on. Provinces are somewhat similar to states, like you can see here, but these are going to be subject to a higher ruler. I want you to contrast this with what we learned about the Greek polis, or the Greek city-state. Those Greek city-states were not subject to any Greek king who was over all of them. Absolutely not. They were independent. They were city-states that were neither cities nor states. They were really independent countries, but that is definitely not the case. Darius is going to organize it into provinces, and he calls them satrapies. And these satrapies are going to be ruled by a satrap, and he is a government official. He reports directly to the king, who's Darius. Some of you got that question wrong on your quiz, and I want you to realize these people were not kings. They were officials given their job by Darius, and they served as tax collectors, they served as judges, they employed secretaries that would maintain records for the province, but they were very much subject to the king, unlike the Greek city-states. One of the other things that I want you to contrast with Greece is that the Darius and all of the Persian kings, their power was dependent on their armies, but their armies, these were not the hoplites. These were not the citizen soldiers of Greece, the people who chose to take up arms and defend their homeland. These were professionally trained soldiers who Cyrus would conscript, which means to force someone into your army, or that people who volunteered to serve in it. But these were very much professional soldiers, including a group of 10,000 of them who were the personal bodyguard of the king, whoever it was, and formed under Darius. So these people were called the Immortals. We're going to see a little bit of them in the video clip we watch, at least as far as Hollywood puts them. They were called the Immortals because if one was killed, he was replaced immediately, which would make sense if you're the personal bodyguard squad of the king. The religion of ancient Persia, and to some extent still exists today in Iran, was Zoroastrianism. The founder and prophet, easy to remember's name is Zoroaster. You know, Zoroastrianism is named after him. You'll also sometimes see that name spelled Zarathustra. I'm just going to ask you to remember Zoroaster. The most important thing I want you to remember about that is that it's a monotheistic religion. We've learned about a lot of polytheistic religions, and we've learned, of course, about some religions like Hinduism that were polytheistic monotheism, or vice versa, but this one's very straightforward. It's a monotheistic religion, just like Judaism, which was the only really monotheistic religion we learned about so far. They had one God, or one creator, Ahura Mazda, and this creator was seen as the creator of all things good. There was evil. Certainly Zoroastrianism recognizes the presence of evil, and one of the other central tenets of Zoroastrianism is that humans have free will and that they are able to choose between good or evil, but part of the belief system is that good will always ultimately triumph. So, spoiler alert. Now, there are 4 significant battles that I want you to be aware of in the Persian War. We're going to look at the cause first, because remember, your objective was to understand the causes and effects. So the cause, what happens is we do, of course, inevitably have some conflict between this growing Persian Empire. See here, this is that region I told you called Asia Minor, the one that I told you is now modern-day Turkey. You're going to inevitably have friction between this growing Persian Empire and these Greeks, and a number of Greek city-states were subjected. They were conquered by Darius, and a number of them submitted willingly, but then there was one group that had decided to rebel. They had decided to rebel against King Darius of Persia, and Athens, when hearing about this, decided that they would help them. Now, Darius is not the merciful person that Cyrus is, but he hears about this and decides that he can't allow this. This would set a dangerous precedent if he allows Athens to interfere and support rebels. So he brings 20,000 soldiers to invade Greece, and he lands at a place called Marathon. It's a plain, like a wide open space. He and his military make landfall there. The Greeks are waiting for them, but they're waiting in a position on the hills, and as you learn more about war, you'll realize that being on the hills tends to be a good position, because if someone wants to attack you, they have to come up at you. When the Persians stand around, they wait around in hopes that the Greeks will come out and charge them, but when they don't, the Persians decide, under King Darius, they decide that what they're going to do is go back to their ships, and they're going to sail and land closer to Athens. So the moment that they turn around, they turn their backs, and they decide to return to their ships, is when the Greeks finally attack. And because so many of the cavalry are already on the ships, and the foot soldiers are just waiting there to be picked up and brought back to the ships, the Greeks are able to defeat them, and they win. This is where the name of the Battle of Marathon, this is where we get the idea of a marathon, because a messenger named Pheidippides was sent to run back to Athens and let them know that the Greeks had been victorious against Darius's Persian army. And he, after running his 25 miles, is said to have proclaimed victory and then died. So that's how I would feel at the end of a marathon as well. So this is a first defeat for the Persians at the hands of Greece. But they are not done. That one was under Darius. You'll find that Xerxes, the next Persian king, is unsatisfied. He has decided that he's going to get revenge, and the way he's going to get revenge is with his second invasion. And this time he has 180,000 troops and thousands of ships. So he's quite determined to come back for the Greeks and defeat them. Now, the Greeks, sensing outside danger, finally do what I've been talking about all year. They finally unite. They finally unite, and they agree that what they need to do is stall the Persians, because the Athenian navy, which you know is what they're known for, needs time to get ready and needs time to prepare. So they send a united Greek force to try to stop the Persians here at this pass called Thermopylae, because as you can imagine, this is a good place to defend. This is actually going really well. Even though they were substantially outnumbered, they still were managing to hold thanks to their phalanx, and we'll look at that in a minute. But thanks to that, they were able to hold it, and perhaps they would have at least lasted longer, but in fact it was a Greek traitor who showed the Persians a secret path that allowed them to go around back and then to out to flank and surround the Greeks. Now, Leonidas, you need to remember his name. This is Sparta guy in the movie. He and the 300 Spartans that he keeps there, they send a number of people to safety and a number of people flee, but Leonidas and his 300 Spartans stay there and continue bravely to fight so that they can hold off this invading army and give the Athenians and the other Greeks more time to gather together and prepare their defense of Greece. The last two battles that you need to be aware of, Salamis, just memorize, I know, you're like, Salamis. No, Salamis, just memorize that this is the only naval battle. This is the only big battle that we're going to memorize that happens at sea. This is going to be a fight between the Greek ships and the Persian ships. The Greeks are going to end up winning because, in fact, their ships are smaller and faster and easier to steer. You're going to see this theme throughout history. I can think off the top of my head of an American naval battle that was the same way. Although their ships were smaller, they were easier to maneuver, and as a result, they destroyed nearly the entire Persian naval fleet in this one battle. It has a spectacular effect on the war. However, the Persian land forces are not giving up. They continue to march on. They reach Athens, and they burn the city to the ground, perhaps hoping that this will break the back of the Greeks. Unfortunately, it does not have that effect. It riles up the Greeks even more because they see the center of their culture burned by the Persians, and they amass a larger and larger army until finally they meet the Persians in the final battle of the Persian War at Plataea. And that's going to be a resounding victory for the Greeks. They're going to have successfully defended their homeland. Everything is going to be peaceful and wonderful for the just kidding. As you can imagine, that little spat that's been brewing between Sparta and Athens is of course going to break out into war. But for this brief period, we have this moment of success and excitement because we succeeded in defending the Greek homeland against these invading Persians. Why did the Persian Empire fall was one of the questions I asked you to answer. The main effects that you need to know, of course, of this war: the Greeks are successful in defending their homeland. They do weaken Persia. But to answer the question of why did it fall, there's two main factors that you should be aware of. Again, we have a series of poor rulers, and we've seen this again and again in nearly every culture we've studied. You'll have a great king and he will expand the empire and things will be going great, and then you'll have a series of kings who care more about their own luxuries and their own comfort and don't show enough concern for the people. They impose these massively high taxes to pay for things that don't benefit the people, not public work projects, and you end up having rebellions. Another thing especially that was central to Persia was this infighting within the royal family. I'm not sure how else to describe infighting to you except to show you two siblings who are fighting each other, but in Persia they took it to a whole new level. Because the Persian kings had lots of sons, some of them acknowledged and some of them not, they had very little chance of gaining any power or protection even unless they managed to kill off the others. So that's why your book gave you this awesome statistic that of the last 9 rulers of the Persian Empire before they fell, 6 of them were murdered. And finally, with all of this infighting and all of these rebellions, they're really unprepared when Alexander the Great comes marching in, and he's able to he finds it relatively easy to then subdue the last of the Persian Empire. That is your Persian Empire lecture. Make sure you write a good summary, and I will see you in class.